To order, December 8th, 2016, regular board meeting. And we have everyone present on our board members. Welcome to everyone who's here in the audience. We're delighted to have you. And an item of particular importance we wanted to mention today is a recognition of Dr. Catherine Alexander. Kay Alexander was a trustee here at the college for basically since 1965 until 2010, and she was one of the original trustees of the college, and she was, those of us who know her, she's a terrific person, and unfortunately she died this year, but her work for the college was just amazing, and we're grateful for that. And I know a couple of our fellow board members would like to perhaps make a comment.
Yes, I would. Catherine Alexander was truly an extraordinary human being. Though she was defeated in 2010, I have this feeling that she planned it that way, and may have not voted for herself. Because she was so delighted that her place was going to be taken by somebody else. She was born in Pasadena in 1926. So spring chicken would not be a category into which she would kindly fit. And I found a clip of her. So rather than just telling you about her, I'd like her for 2 minutes and 59 seconds to tell you about herself.
The only way I knew the college at all was through adult ed, and I wasn't the only one. There were 3 other board members that came on because they were on the parent-child workshops. So that was the nucleus. The parent-child workshops were established in the 50s, and they were under adult education. And I would say they were probably, well, they were a very big chunk of adult education at that point. I had already had an experience on an elementary board where I was the only woman and the first woman that had ever been elected. So I had no feeling in that. It was very much a feeling of the 7 board members that in order to put together a team, we were to do different things. The women had time to do things when the men did not, and men had time to do things when the women did not. And the idea was everybody was expected to carry 1/7 of the load, and you weren't on the team if you didn't, but yet we did different things. So I felt like an asset, but I do remember there were 4 men and 3 women, and the 4 men in turn served as president of the board. And finally, the 5th year, I was elected president of the board. And afterwards, somebody came up and said in a very low voice, I never knew who it was, "Congratulations, I didn't think they'd ever elect a woman." I can go right up the coast. We had Ben Wells, who was the postmaster of Goleta and was on the Goleta elementary board, who knew, may I say, everybody in Goleta. I mean, you couldn't have found anybody who knew more. I was on the Hope board. The Hope district was between the Goleta district and the high school district. And so I had elementary board experience. Then coming from Santa Barbara, we had Bill Filippini, who was head of the Business Trades Council, and in my opinion was the most knowledgeable board member when it came to the town, the job, the whole thing. In other words, he came on board knowing what was going on, which really the rest of it didn't. We had Winnie Lancaster, who had served as an administrator with the college. Sid Frank, who had been on a parent-child workshop. We had Jim Garvin, whom the Garvin Theater is named for, had been on an elementary board in Montecito. And we had Dorothy Meggs, who was extremely well known, a real pioneer of the of the Carpinteria community. When the rest of us felt like we didn't know where Carpinteria even was, she knew it all. She could tell us. I mean, that was the original board. We had the goal of
can get a sense of the human character that Kay Alexander was. And she was immensely helpful to me as I served as president of the board in the first 2 years of my session here. And she would call me with advice. Usually I would have to call her, but once in a while she would feel strongly about an issue and she would call me and tell me that, you know, Peter, this is what you need to do. So she was a friend, she was a mentor, and she loved the college immensely. This was her life, and as a founding member of the Board of Trustees, she remained loyal to this institution far beyond her term. She was also a scholar. She took degrees in philosophy and in religious studies. She became a noted scholar of Confucian thought, and I had her as a guest lecturer in a class dealing with global studies because I wanted students to understand how different cultures look at the same stuff and come to radically different conclusions. And I misspoke at some point in this lecture, certainly in my introduction to of her, and she took a few moments to kindly, gently correct the teacher so as to put him in his place. And she was also a teaching assistant for Walter Capps during the time that he was teaching at UCSB, where he had huge classes focusing on the Vietnam War. And I recall having been a lecturer for one of those sessions, and there was Kay. We mourn her and we celebrate her, and we celebrate her contributions to this college, which will be enduring.
Thank you, Peter. Marty, did
Yeah,
you?
I just wanted to thank you for that. It's so endearing to see her speaking about her early years and so on, and I appreciate having that. I really loved Kay. She was very, she just was a truth teller and, as you said, a very gentle soul, but very, very smart and very good, and I appreciated knowing her. But that oral history is something that we, I don't know if we have any kind of thing that we're doing, but the oral history is just priceless, really. When she mentioned people like Winnie Lancaster, her husband was the one that started Bank of Montecito, I think, and she was president of the League of Women Voters and so on, so I knew of her, but I didn't know she was on this board, so there you go, but it's a small town, anyway. But anyway, we will miss Kay, and she certainly lived a full life and a very well-spent life.
Well, thank you both, Marty and Peter. And this recognition is really on behalf of not just the board, but the college, for all the work that Kay did for our college. And I, too, was helped, I know, visiting her in the early years of being a new trustee. She was very helpful and eager to be so. So thank you, Kay. We now have some items to take out of order, and unless anyone on the board has an objection, we have our folks from the foundation here, and I'd like to put the resolution first, since they're here. Okay. It's a resolution, so I need a motion to approve the resolution. Craig?
I so move.
Jonathan, second. And Angie, I think you need to ask us.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. You're not on. There.
Trustee Kugler?
Aye.
Trustee Nielsen?
Aye.
Trustee Gallardo?
Aye.
Trustee Croninger?
Aye.
Student Trustee Gribble?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes, and we would like someone from the foundation, if they can, to come up and... Did Paulmina get a chance to get back? Okay.
Okay. Well, may I say?
Anthony, would you like to do an introduction?
Yeah, I'd like to
Comment.
say a little bit here. Been here 5 months, but I can tell you that the welcome that I've received on the part of the foundation and, of course, the CEO has been just absolutely extraordinary. And I really feel like, although I don't know the history, I feel like it's a new era for us. I feel like we have a new relationship and a new commitment to each other in terms of the college and the foundation. And I think that commitment is really best seen in the College Promise in many ways, in what we're doing for those students. You know, the $2,760 in tuition for 2 years, and the book fees and supply fees, that's one thing. But if you add all that up for an individual, that's worth $1 million. You know, that's just unbelievable in terms of changing those individuals' lives. And the 748 people that are involved with the Promise program now, and the many thousands that are going to be involved with that in the future, all certainly thank and owe the foundation a great debt of gratitude for your commitment and the commitment of the foundation members. So I just wanted to say thank you from my perspective and from the college's perspective.
And others may wish to comment as well. Any of you guys? Jonathan?
Yeah, the College Promise here has, I think, taken SBCC to the next level, and we've had renowned recognition. Like everybody I know from every walk of in every field, you know, looks at the SBCC, hears about it, and says, "Wow, I can't believe you guys are doing that. That is, you know, inspirational." So I think we're really leading the way nationally on this. So I really appreciate that you're able to do that for us, and for the students, of course.
Emily?
I'd just like to say thank you on behalf of the students. We've always been on the leading side of being a progressive institution, and I think the fact that we've taken the College Promise Act and run with it so far and offering so much education to so many students in need is fantastic. So we've heard a lot about it throughout campus. It's well known and it's well appreciated. So thank you.
Mary Ann?
As the trustee representative on the board of the foundation, I want to make a comment about all of the work the foundation board does. I think it is very easy to think of that as a society position. Well, I don't know if it is or isn't, but I'll tell you what it is. It's hard work. And the board members attend faithfully and come prepared and work hard at it. And this is an example with this program of a foundation that really works.
Craig?
I don't really have anything new to say, but I want to echo Jonathan's comments. And for the past year or so, I've been spending a lot of time over in the central San Joaquin Valley. And I know quite a few people that are sitting on boards or are presidents or working in education in the junior colleges in the valley, and them at the high school level. And you know, they find out through my wife or somebody else what I'm doing, and that I'm sitting on this board, and they come up and they go, "Wow, you guys are leading, you know, everybody. You're out front. This is really fantastic." And you know, it's like they already know. The word is spread, and it makes me proud to sit on this board. Thank you so very much.
Well, I think that sums it up. We really are grateful. Oh, Peter? I'm sorry. Did I knock that over on you?
Yes, I did. I did that all by myself. I wanted to say, echo the sentiments said so far, and add, I really appreciate what the College Promise communicates to our students. And there are two messages. One is, we believe in you. We have hope for the future. We want you to succeed. And the second is, we have high expectations of you that you're going to work hard. There's nothing free about this free. There's a reciprocal arrangement here, and you're going to earn this. And I think it's a statement about how we feel about the future, and I want to thank you for that.
Veronica?
Oh, I just want to thank you guys for further extending relationships in the community. And I think that the fruit of the foundation is trust and relationships. And without people to do that, you guys would never be able, or none of us would be able to accomplish or fulfill our mission in this city, in this town, for our families. And so that's something that cannot go understated. So thank you for being genuine in our community and for building the trust that we need to support each other.
Well, I think we could go on all evening, but seriously, the foundation is just fantastic. You guys are amazing. You have supported us for so many years, and you are doing more and more and more, and we appreciate it. And we wanted to say thank you, and we're looking forward to the next year as well, working with you. Earl?
If I could say just a couple of words. I am Earl Armstrong. I am chair of the foundation for the next 2 years here. I speak on behalf of my board. We are so appreciative of what you have given us here and the recognition that we've received. And we appreciate all of you very much in your leadership of this college and what this college represents to the community. We're very proud of the foundation and what Jeff has accomplished. Jeff Green has accomplished in the short amount of time he's been here is absolutely incredible. And I would say that this award, as much as for the foundation, goes to Jeff Green and all that he's done. Thank you very much.
So now I have to say something. No, I don't want to argue with you here in public, Earl, but I want to appreciate just the partnership that we've had with each and every one of you, not only you as a body, but as individuals, because every one of you, whether you sit on the board or whether we talk offline or whether you show up to events or whether you give me ideas or you talk to board members about what might be possible, we're grateful for it. But I also want to acknowledge the small but mighty team that I serve with, and I think, 60% of us are here, 70% of us are here. So you all know Lucille Balch-Ramirez, who actually runs the Promise program, Karen Svensson, our CFO, Don Sanchez, who's our executive assistant. We've got Brittany Napier, who runs our Visionary Circle. And of course, Jennifer LeMay, the newest member of our staff, who is our communications and marketing director, and Gretchen Hewlett, our most senior member of the staff, and I mean that in longevity terms only, who has been with us now for 18 years. So it's an incredible team. And I also want to say Robin Friedman, who's sitting there, another one of our volunteer board members. And the board members, it's important to note, these are folks that completely volunteer their time. So you have 20 plus 5 members of this community who very willingly step up and write large checks and ask other people to do the same and volunteer to put programs together and events and their best thinking and time, talent, and treasure. So it's truly appreciated that we can all do this together and make some big new leaps forward. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
They wanted another picture.
Who took it?
Another picture? Okay. Well, as a topic, that's a tough one to follow, but our next subject is our annual audit. And I believe we have a report on that.
Yes, we do. This would be the audit ending the fiscal year of June 30, 2016, and we have our interim Vice President for Business Services, Lindsay Moss, that's here. Then she'll give a brief overview and then introduce the auditors.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? I need to be close, right? So I am just here to introduce Heidi White. Heidi White is with Vavrinic Trine Day & Co. We just say VTD because it's too hard to say Vavrinic. VTD is a new audit firm that we just started working with this year. They were selected back in the spring. We were very, very excited after we went out and did our RFPs and met multiple potential auditors for us to work with. They just seemed like a great fit right away. It was a little late to get started with a brand new auditor, and they were very polite and helpful and didn't mind that it scrunched our audit time, and they had to work a little extra hard to get our audit complete for us on time for this board meeting. It's just been a great process. I'm really actually quite excited to have worked with a new auditor. We were nervous about it. Oh no, you never know what it's going to be like working with new auditors. It can be a lot more work, but Heidi and her team has just been fantastic, and they've taught us a lot about what needs to be in our financial statements and gave us a great opportunity to update our MD&A and make it even more beneficial to the community and the Board of Trustees. So I just want to present to you Heidi White. She's our audit engagement partner, and she's going to be going through the financial statements for you.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. It's really a pleasure to be here to meet all of you. First year of an audit is always a little bit more difficult because we are getting familiar with so many new processes and procedures and ways of doing things, but have to say we've completed this audit with what we consider a very good success. That success is really in front of you in the form of your audit report. I have a couple of pages that I wanted to go over and just highlight for you, but I know you've had an opportunity hopefully to review some things, and if there's some questions, I'll be able to go over those as well. The first part of the audit that I would like for you to know is that the auditor's opinion, which is on pages 1, 2, and 3, used to be, pages 2, 3, and 4, used to be a one-page opinion. We've expanded onto 3 different pages, so it's obviously got a lot more weight to it. A lot more information is included here. But the most important part is at the top of page 3, which is our opinion. That is that in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the business type activities and aggregate remaining fund information of the district for the year ended June 30th, 2016, in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States. This is an unmodified opinion. It states that the financial statements that are presented here are in accordance with appropriate accounting principles, and there's no deviations from that. So I know you're used to that type of an opinion. It's again the result that was here this year, and I think that's what the community and other agencies that you'll be reporting to will look at first. As you go through the report, I really suggest that you pay special attention to the MD&A. This is management's discussions and analysis. I think the numbers in the report are really exciting, but it doesn't really tell the story. And I think what management has been able to put within this section really tells a story of what's happened not only in 2016, but links it to prior years as well. And I think it's a very good part of the report that really should serve as kind of a guide as you go through the rest of the report and see what's there. The financial statements are very different from what you're used to looking at on a regular basis. These are consolidated. There's not a general fund, there's not a capital outlay fund. It's everything consolidated together, and of course all the accruals are included here too. One of the things that I'd really like to call your attention to is on page 21. This is on the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in position. Again, this is all of the funds of the district combined. But there's 2 numbers. The scholarship discount allowances, which is at the top end of that page, is $8.6 million. That's fee waivers that were granted to your students from various agencies, particularly the BOG fee waivers. And then there's also student financial aid, a little less than halfway down the page, of $31.9 million. All told, over $40 million was provided to students in the form of either tuition reductions, tuition waivers, grants and other forms of student financial aid that went to help the students of specifically Santa Barbara Community College District. With that, I will tell you that we also, when we get to the other opinions, we have an unmodified opinion on compliance related to federal grants and programs, of which student financial aid is your largest one. So, very well administered program here at the district as well. Throughout the report itself, we have a lot of notes to the financial statements that will highlight specific areas that are usually on the statement of financial position, the balance sheet. Gives you a little bit more detail if you want to know what a specific number is. There's usually a specific note that will tell you a lot more detail that's included there. But a couple of areas that I wanted to kind of just make sure that you noted, skipping quite a ways back to page 80. This is a very important page of the report, and as you look at it, you'll see that it's blank. These are the adjustments that we proposed and posted to the financial statements, of which there were none. So even though this is consolidated and it's showing everything together, when you look at the 311 report that you received back in September, that was the basis of all of the financial activity that we looked at, and in looking at all of it, we had no adjustments. So again, a very good indicator of the procedures and policies that you have within the business office and the results that we were able to provide to you today. One of the areas that you can look at to really put everything together and just one page is page 95. This is the summary of our auditor's results. And it really puts in one place all of the opinions and kind of the results of our testing. On the financial statements, as I said, we had an unmodified opinion. There's no material deficiencies, no significant deficiencies, and no non-compliance that was material to the financial statements. For federal awards, again, it's an unmodified opinion. There's no material weaknesses. We do have one instance that we have included in the findings and recommendations related to return to Title IV compliance. I suggest that you read that and particularly read management's response, because I think they very proactively worked to make sure that that compliance area was addressed and resolved very timely. As state compliance, there's about 18 different areas of state compliance that we look at every year. 50% law calculation, FTES compliance, all the way through that the state chancellor's office provides to us every year. No significant deficiencies, no material weaknesses, and no areas of non-compliance. So again, an unmodified opinion over state compliance. Those are the three areas that I think, whether you're a state agency, a federal agency, somebody that you're reporting to, really give an indicator of what's going on at the district. So very good report card. If you're looking, educational agencies like report cards, that's kind of your report card right here. Any questions that, I know I looked only at a few pages, so if you had questions in particular, I'd be happy to go over those.
Any questions? Anyone? Well, I'd just like to comment that I appreciate the clarity of the report and your presentation both. I think that these are good improvements, as Lindsay mentioned, that it's easier for us to read and understand, and thank you.
Great. We also have two other reports for you. One is over the bond program, which is a financial statement and a compliance report as well, where we're testing specifically whether the bond expenditures relate right back to the voter-approved ballot measure that went on. Again, we had no areas of deficiency. It's an unmodified opinion on those financial statements, and no areas that we brought to the attention that were a finding or recommendation. And then the parking fees program that you provide to the city as well.
Okay. Any questions on those two? All right. Well, thank you for your work on this, and Lindsay as well, of course, and the whole team. James?
Yeah, really, just as a comment, I'm just really proud to have such a clean audit, and nice to have a new beginning with a relationship with a new company. And from all reports, it's been a very smooth and successful audit for us. And I had a chance to talk with James earlier, and he's very, very complimentary about your staff and the work that you've done. So thank you for that.
Well, I might also mention that we appreciate that it's a new relationship and that's work for both of you, but we're gratified to hear that it worked out well, and the point was to have fresh eyes after a number of years with the same auditor, to ask someone else to look, and it's very gratifying to have exactly the same result, basically, as well as the new relationship, so. Okay, guess we get to go back to public comment. I hope, Angie, there isn't anyone here waiting, okay. No one for public comment. That moves us to the minutes for the meeting of November 10th. Can I have a motion on that?
I move approval.
Peter moves. Second? Craig seconds. Any discussion, comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Minutes are approved. Now we get to the development of the consent agenda. This is still a relatively new process for us, so I'll describe it briefly. The general idea is that we have a number of routine items, usually on the second meeting of the month, not so much on this meeting. And they are familiar to the board. They have adequate backup material. We moved our notice date up to Friday instead of Monday, and in order to allow people more time to look at it and ask any questions. And so to the extent people feel like we can approve these things as a group, then we move the meeting along and have more time for other things that people want to discuss. On the other hand, we always want the process to include the option to pull things out and talk about them or hear about them, however long or briefly that may be. So the first step here, these are items under item 6 in general, which would be 6.1, 6.2, 6.3, 4, and 5. And so the question is, of those, is anyone interested in hearing a little bit more about any of them? Peter?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to prolong it, but I think one of the problems with the consent agenda is that the general public who may be watching, and I know there's a rumor that only 3 people watch, but I think it's more than that, that we don't get to air it. And the first 3 items, 6.1, 2, and 3, could stand just a little explanation, because I think the written lines could be confusing. And I don't mean to spend more than a minute or 2 on this, but I would like to reserve the right to have those withdrawn from the consent agenda.
Okay, so we'll remove 6, 1, 2, and 3, and that would leave 4 and 5 on consent. And let's vote on those and then go back to 1 and 2, 1, 2, 3. Does that work for you? Okay. All in favor, or no, I need a motion, sorry. Need a motion on 6.4 and 6.5 to approve.
I move approval of item 6.4 and 6.5.
Second?
Okay.
Craig seconds. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Those 2 are passed. Now let's go back, if we can. Lindsay, can you just give us a brief update on 6.1, 2, and 3?
Sure. I don't know how brief you want me to be, so stop me if I'm going too far. The Channel Islands roofing, what has occurred at the West Campus building is when the contractor designs a building, they can only factor in so many parts of the project that they would understand in terms of the Cal OSHA regulations. So the roof of that building, after it started to be constructed, Cal OSHA came in and said, wait, you need an extra rail, you need an extra cover over the skylight, and you need some different hooks for window washers to attach to, even though we have no intent of ever having window washers come down and wash those windows, but that's their regulations. So there are 4 small changes that resulted because of that. $1,000, $2,000, another $1,000. One of them was actually a reduction in cost because we are not doing what was in the plans. Instead, we're doing different types of brackets. So those are the 4 change orders, and that's why one is a reduction in cost. So that's a quick summary of the roofing. Is that
I noticed that we're still well within our contingency budget.
we are, yes.
Okay.
There's been very few change orders to this project, which is fantastic. In fact, right now, the change orders are negative overall, so that's great. This is the first one that has a little bit of extra cost. So very, very good news on that project.
That's highly unusual. I don't think I've really heard of that before.
Could we
So I mean,
call
that,
it-
that is outstanding.
Could we call it a precedent, though?
But I don't think we should object to that.
No, don't object to that. That's all good.
Yeah, I think the relationship we have with the contract manager and the multi-prime is really serving us well.
Good. Okay, 6.2.
6.2, so this also has to do with West Campus project. This is the contractor who does the grading, the dirt work, and they are primarily done. And there's a 10% retention in what we pay them. There's a long process to complete all the paperwork and finalize everything. So it's very customary for the contractor to come back and ask for us to reduce the retention from 10% down to 5% to allow them to, have that cash flow and pay some of their bills. So it's a customary action, and our contract manager recommended that we do reduce that retention from 10% down to 5% because they are almost, they're 98% complete, and it's a normal process. So that's
So
what that
we
one
still
is.
have more money in hand than we owe them, or
Yes.
we could possibly pay them at this point.
Yeah.
Okay. And 6.3.
Okay. The Sports Pavilion concession stand refurbishment, that was a part of the swing space, multiple projects we have for swing space, such as the tent and some of the barbecue trailers and whatnot, with the project that we were working on to replace the campus center. So that project was well underway before some new decisions were made about campus center. And what that is in the PE sports pavilion area, we have refurbished a small location into a Natural Bowls, a second Natural Bowls. There's going to be some more things there, juice bar, some extra food. It's going to be a healthy, restaurant venue that fits well with athletics and, people coming out of the gym and looking for a healthy snack to have. So that is complete, and that's what this notice of completion is for. And that expense was covered by the swing space budget, and that's where we're at with that. We're primarily done a few more pieces of equipment to purchase to finish it and make it operable, but we're moving forward with that.
Okay, is there more that you knew?
Thank you very
Question?
much. I appreciate just a little extra time to touch on those, and I'd like to move approval of 6.1 through 6.3.
Second?
Second.
Marty, second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Anthony is reminding me that, did we notice it for approval?
Yes.
We did. Okay, we need to approve the audit report. It said draft, and I was not thinking about the approval part, but we do. So may I have a motion to approve the audit report?
I'll motion.
Jonathan?
I second.
Craig, second? Okay. And all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I just wanted to comment on the consent agenda to Trustee Haslam's comment, and I think that it worked right there just perfectly, and that's exactly the way it's supposed to work. If there may be occasion where there are no items that we put into the consent agenda, and we have each one of the items, addressed or talked about. So it's just a tool to be able to help with those familiar, routine, non-controversial items. But those that have any question or you want any kind of discussion, please feel free to have them pulled and we can talk about them. Not an issue, not a problem.
Let me just say that the reason I did it was some of the verbiage is really familiar to those who are immediately and day-to-day involved with that kind of thing. But the people who pick up the tab, that is the taxpayer, may not be familiar with that, even if they do get the agenda. And so the purpose of pulling it for just a short conversation is to help anybody else who might be interested in knowing just what it is that we're spending their money on.
And I think that's a very good reason, so.
Yeah.
Okay, as we keep moving around our agenda, I think we are now on 7.2. Did we get to that?
7.2.
Okay, we're in the same place. 7.2, and that is the SERP. So you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, sure, I'd be glad to. From previous discussions, presentations, and retreats that we've had, just even in the 5 months that I've been here, it's been well established that based on our financial projections, the FCMAT report, the Financial Crisis Management Assistance Team report that we received a while back, that Santa Barbara City College has a fiscal challenge. Okay, so we've established that. And this challenge is really unprecedented in any kind of situation that we've had at the college in prior years. We've had structural, or we've had deficits and such that we've had to deal with. But we've projected a $9 million deficit for next year. And that projection could get progressively worse in subsequent years if we do nothing about it. The essence of the challenge really stems from declining enrollments and related declining revenues. And in addition to that, expenditures that have been ticking up. And so we need to be able to really right-size the institution and right the ship in terms of our financial situation. Recognizing this early on, I've been able to talk to the college community. I talked to you about it, and I've been able to work very closely with college constituency groups to take some actions to be able to plan forward with this. I just need to pause for just 1 second and recognize the amount of work that has been taking place at the college. It has really been extraordinary on so many levels with the participatory governance groups. And I'd like to call out, just 1 second, call out some of the members of these groups and individuals. First of all, CSEA, led by Liz Auchincloss, has been a great partner in all of this. The Academic Senate members, led by Dr. Priscilla Butler, Faculty Association, led by Cornelia Aschenheimer Bartel. I don't know if there's Cornelia. The Advancing Leadership Committee, led by Jason Walker. The Associated Student Government, led by Dylan Raymond. The President's Council, the Dean's Group, and all of the amazing folks that are on the College Planning Council just have spent really hundreds of hours looking at strategies on how to reduce costs or enhance revenues. And we've had retreats, we've had just hours and hours of discussion of all of this. And I just wanted to make sure that I called that work out. I don't know if you all realize it, but it's just been incredible, an incredible effort. And we're certainly not done. I mean, we've got much to do. But one of the solutions that we've talked about has to do with offering a supplemental early retirement plan, or SERP for short, at the institution. And we had talked about that offering early on, and you directed me to work with the college to be able to come up with an action and determine whether or not a SERP is really right for the college. And we opened up the idea of people applying for a SERP across the college, and this is faculty, classified staff, and managers. We have received a total number of applications of 68 individuals. this was as of November 29th, that are interested in participating in the SERP. 68 total applications. And when you break that down, the number there, we had 23 faculty members, 35 classified staff members, and 10 administrator managers that applied for the SERP. And then just this last Tuesday, December 6th, was the deadline that folks had to rescind that application. We wanted to make sure that, you know, people individually had chances to talk with PERS, STIRS, individual financial counselors. Keenan put on something like 90 individual, had 90 individual appointments. We had over 100 workshops and sessions and things that are related to financial planning and the benefits of taking that. All of that said, we had one faculty member that decided to rescind the application, and so we ended up with 22 faculty, 35 classified staff, and 10 administrator managers now that we know are going to be moving forward with that. And so that's where we are at this point. Given it was just last Tuesday that we finally got these numbers solidified, we don't have any more detail about all of this, but it is important to realize that when you have that many individuals leaving the institution, that it doesn't make strategic freeze on being able to replace some of those people. And so that's the process that we are now engaged in across the college, is figuring out where we need to strategically hire individuals back and where we can reorganize the institution so that we don't need to replace those particular individuals. And there's a lot of creative work that's going on here in being able to figure all of that out, and we'll be able to make a presentation back to you in the spring relative to some of those reorganizations. But the creativity, I just have to tell you, the creativity that's going on and the rethinking of departments and programs and different aspects of this college to be able to be more efficient, to be more effective, to play to our strengths, to honor the experience and expertise that we have within this institution, and to be able to think about the institution in what I like to think of as more of a matrix rather than a hierarchy. What's happening with those kinds of thought processes is really incredible, and I'm just so proud of what the college is doing in terms of being able to figure this out. Now, having said all of that, we thought very closely and hard about faculty and faculty positions relative to different departments that could be negatively impacted by all of this. And I say that because there are 7 positions, 7 faculty positions that we'll be talking about in the future that we really believe we need to have in order to, 1, play to our strengths, 2, also make sure that we're serving the students in the best possible manner that we can. And if our enrollments are declining, the last thing we want to do, just from a fiscal perspective, is take away faculty in areas where student success is going to be negatively impacted by the reduction in those faculty. So we are moving forward, and as you'll see, we in the future, we are moving forward with 7 positions, and I can tell you what those are real quickly. Vocational nursing, 2 mathematics faculty members, a faculty member in the School of Justice, philosophy faculty member, an earth and planetary science position, and a communications faculty member. So those 7 positions we're moving forward on. Those are, many of those represent high impacted areas and areas for student success that we feel as a college are absolutely critical to replace. And so the bottom line on all of this is that we're projecting that we'll be able to save with the SERP somewhere between $2 to to $2.5 million per year for a 5-year period of time, that exceeds the projections that were initially presented to you, which were by Keenan and Associates, somewhere around the $1.2 million a year amount. And so this has come in, at a much better rate than we were expecting, and it looks like it's going to be something that's going to be very beneficial. So my recommendation is that we move forward with the CERP and proceed as I've explained.
Questions, anyone? Peter?
Do those cost projections include the cost of part-time faculty or adjunct faculty to replace those that are departed? And still we want to keep teaching those courses?
I have Lindsay here that will get into all of the nuts and bolts of that if you want, but I believe the answer is yes.
That's a tricky question. So the reason why James actually built this fantastic tool that we're going to be using to calculate all these figures, that's where Anthony got his numbers to start with, and we factored in as many things as we possibly can. We asked Keenan about providing us the same information, and they can provide high level, and we really need specific details considering the situation we're in. So we are building that right now, Peter, trying to figure out exactly what we should include in there. Things as little as vacation payouts, we're going to have to provide those retirees. It's hard to say exactly if positions would be filled by adjuncts. We'll build that in where it's necessary, and where it isn't, we won't. There's going to be a lot of movements in the faculty area of. Go ahead, Marcia.
I'm thinking that to some extent what you have to predict there is enrollment in the classes, because we're having a drop in enrollment, so therefore we're accommodating in part that drop by reducing our teaching load.
Sure. And what makes it even more complicated is that the reduction in enrollment is not uniform across the spectrum of courses, but probably more so in some and not so much in others.
I wanted to bring our Executive Vice President, Dr. Jarrell, down to speak a little bit about that, because it is, as Lindsay points out, it's a multifaceted puzzle, as you know very, very well, in terms of it also has to do with our average class size across the college. It has to do with efficiency and effectiveness and kind of the direction that we're trying to move with that. But I wanted Paul maybe to discuss a little bit about that relative to Peter's question.
Yeah, there were a few of the areas where the faculty that we are hiring were direct replacements, if you will, and those were in areas where there were stable enrollments, and in many of them actually had grown over the past few years. So they were not in trend with the decline that we've seen in other areas. Many of the areas that we didn't replace were in areas where the enrollments perhaps were larger than they had been in the past, or we had seen average fill rates of classes go from in the mid-90s to around 80 or even less than 80%. So indicating that even with the current staffing levels that we have, we can accommodate the loss of the sections of classes. I'll also mention that there might be a couple areas, I'm thinking English in particular, where there might be some added sections that we might have to add because these faculty came in retiring later after we had already had the deadline to replace faculty. So it's a different situation with some of those, but I think that it'll be negligible in terms of the cost savings from the retirements, the amount of added adjunct costs that will be there.
Jonathan?
So the fee that we pay to Keenan, is that based off of how much we get to save, or was it a flat fee? I don't quite remember.
No, it's not a flat fee, it's proportionate, and I'll let Lindsay talk about that. All the tricky questions I give to Lindsay and the staff.
Thank you, Dr. Beebe. Yes, it's a percentage of what the total CERP cost is going to be. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's.
So we'll pay more to save more? Or
Yes.
nominally pay more, but
Yeah.
same percent.
We'll
yeah.
still save more. Yeah. Craig?
Yeah, I want to thank Anthony from what he said earlier, getting to the topic about he was He was like really impressed with the creativity of everybody on this campus. Well, you know, I, for one, is kind of in danger of taking it for granted, all this creativity. But all that creativity that came from the faculty and everybody that works here, the management, that's what all came together to make this one of the #1 colleges in the country. And I think that we should not forget that. And I'm not surprised about the creativity that you referred to at all. In fact, I'm in danger of taking it for granted. So thank you for pointing that out.
Thanks for that comment. I appreciate that.
So we need to take action to approve the SERP, and that would be a motion.
Motion.
Jonathan, motion. Somebody second?
I second it.
Mary Ann, second?
Question?
Oh, yes.
What specifically are we approving?
We are approving going ahead with officially offering the SERP to the people who signed up and did not withdraw. Am I got that right?
You've got it right. Up to this point, we hadn't determined whether or not it was going to be fiscally advantageous for us to move forward. Now we've determined that it is fiscally advantageous for us to move forward with the SERP. And so that's what you'd be approving, is to move forward with the SERP.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're a go with the SERP. And I realized that as we talk about it, we keep saying SERP, myself included. And for the members of the public who might not know what that is, it's the Supplemental Employee Retirement Plan.
And we all still have to look at a piece of paper to remember what that acronym stands for.
Yes, me too. All right, now we are at the item 8.1, which is a dialogue on board organization and structure. And I was listening to last year's discussion earlier in order to kind of remind myself how we handled it, and I think it was an excellent discussion. Mary Ann was our president, and what we did was we focused on the big picture. We focused on our ideas of what we were thinking about for the coming year. We focused on how we might plan for the coming year. An issue was brought up about whether or not we should have a succession policy. We talked about that. We asked Veronica and Peter to look into it, and they subsequently came back and said, no, we don't need to be official. So we raised those kind of big picture issues and sort of looked ahead at our coming year. And then next meeting, which is actually next week, really quick, we will then have our elections. So this is your opportunity to talk about the big picture issues that you see as we look ahead. I have a couple of them, but let's open it up to others for a few minutes and see. Mary Ann.
I've been thinking about this a lot because the timing is kind of strange in the sense that we are just a few months into the transition with a new president for the college. And while he is remarkable, and we all recognize that, it is a transition. And because of that, when we come to the point where we're talking about organizational structure, I would recommend that we think about keeping the same trustee president that we have now, assuming she would be kind enough to say yes, so that the transition does not involve the president of the college having to train a new president to his wishes at the same time as he is transitioning himself in the college. Now, how long we would ask the current president to serve, whether it would be a whole term or 1 year. That's, we could talk about that, I think. But I do hope that you will be thinking about that as we talk about the organization.
Peter?
I'd like to support that. I know that in my own case, when I served for 2 terms, I think it was helpful to the idea of continuity, to have one person serve in that capacity for that second year, as we were going from one president to an interim president to a settled president. So I think that's a really good idea. And I don't know that I would bother with, a half term or, I'm not sure what the point of that would be. But I would have no problem with that kind of a transitional statement. On the other matter that I think we decided upon last year was to sort of basically do away with our committees. And I think in general that has worked, maybe because the activity level at the committee structure was not always of equal significance. And it seems to me that the model that we may have evolved is one in which we call those committees into session when needed. And I like that idea. I like the idea of having the option of pulling a committee together, purpose to wrestle informally with the substance of the issue, and then come back to the board with a recommendation. In other words, if there's no reason to meet, there's no reason to meet.
Jonathan?
Yeah, I want to agree with Peter on the committees. A lot of we talked about this earlier, but a lot of facility committee meetings ended up being 15 minutes long, which was longer than me to drive one way to even get to them. So it's just not a good use of college time, I think, to have all the administrators there, and Craig would be there too as legal counsel, and it'd be 15 minutes. So I think we're dealing with things pretty effectively at a board level. One idea that I presented earlier this year, but in a different form now, I think it would be good for us to have a legislative liaison position on the board, like one of us would do it. I personally would be more than happy and interested to do it, but a position that keeps an eye on what's changing at the state level and the federal level in relation to community colleges and education funding, and then we can give our opinion. And the way I've imagined it would be an agenda item in January when bills are first introduced, or they're introduced now, and we can discuss what new bills have come up that affect community colleges. In March, when bills have to get through committee, so if there's something we need to say about a bill before it goes to committee, we can say it then. Or say, something good or bad, either way. And then in May, when the budget is being revised, and when bills have to pass their House of Origin in June, and then at the end of the summer, when the governor's gonna, decide to sign or not sign different bills. So that's kind of what I had in mind in terms of that, what the board can do in terms legislatively. So that's an idea.
Yeah, I really like that idea. And when I served on I know that the statewide academic senate has a liaison function, and so there may be a way by which we can parlay that idea into a partnership with people who are doing exactly the same thing. The thing that I'm missing is, I wouldn't want one person, one of us, to make the pitch, yes, this is a good, no, that's not a good bill. But I'd want us to have a chance to have a discussion about the nature of the bill before we would say, Jonathan, go forth and clobber him, do something nice.
Yeah. No, of course. I think it would come to a board,
Yeah.
I would do the research and bring it to the board, these are the 4 bills, for example. Oh, yeah. These are the 4 bills, and then we would discuss, and if we thought one was important, we'd write a resolution, pass it, and then send the LL to go say, make a public comment somewhere saying this is what the Board of Trustees at SBCC thinks.
I think that's a great idea, but isn't there a committee at the state level? It's just-
CCLC.
Yeah, CCLC has a committee on legislation, do they?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
they do.
Okay. It might be interesting to try to get one of us on that committee or do something like that. Is that a possibility?
That would be a very natural progression of
Yeah.
the idea. And at the federal level, ACCT
Yeah.
has a very similar committee to that, and it would be wonderful if we had a representation on that particular committee too.
Yeah, I don't think we've talked about that kind of representation, but I really think it's a good idea to have somebody bring these things to us, because otherwise it's really hard to keep up on your own, just one person, but, you know, we could help. So that's good.
Yeah, it's great to have somebody who's volunteering and to do all that work. Craig?
I also like the idea, and the main reason I like the idea is that in the past, since just the 4 years that I've been here, it's always come down to us, through the president. And it would be, I think, good for us to hear it from like 2 different sources. So we don't want to, say, Anthony, you don't have to worry about that. Jonathan has it underhand, but I think having it come from 2 different directions, might make us all, as a board, more knowledgeable, more involved. And so I'm in favor of that, especially if you want to volunteer your time to do that.
I'm all in.
You don't have anything else to do.
Nothing. That's my man.
I might comment that Peter brought up the suspension of our subcommittees, and I had that on my list as something we should talk about. From my perspective, I think it's been working well. I'd like to hear from other people, but I feel like we've allowed ourselves as a board as a whole to become more informed on key subjects like the budget, which is obviously a high priority for this year and last year and next year. And at the same time, your comment about evolving toward subject-related committees, ad hoc committees. I also had on my list Marty's suggestion that we have an ad hoc committee, which is the flip side of the one we now have, which is mitigating impacts of the college. This, I'm kind of generally thinking about if people are amenable, we might put it into our organization thinking for next week, and that would be an ad hoc committee to work on community partnership issues. And that's kind of how I was conceptualizing it. We don't want to get into the operational issues, but we can do a lot as board members in helping to advocate for the college, think of ideas and events. We've talked about having some forums. We haven't actually done that. We have, Anthony has already done a great deal of work on pulling together the New York Philharmonic event, which I think is fabulous. And we could help promote that. We could help let people know to come to campus to appreciate and enjoy that event. So there's lots of things I think that sort of an ad hoc committee could do on the positive side. And so a suggestion I had is that we create that group next time and find out who's interested in working on that. Anthony has also asked that we consider having a retreat again, early, basically, or maybe we'll wind up having 2 retreats. And that would be the end of January, early February. FCMAT left us with a significant to-do list as board members, and there's a lot we could discuss that would help us move toward those policy level decisions that need to be made in follow-up to that report. This is not a report that needs to sit on the shelf. We need to move forward with doing that. So that was something else I wanted to mention, and I have some dates that we could settle on when people want to look at their calendars. Angie has said Mondays February 6th, 13th, or 27th, Tuesdays, the 22nd, and Fridays, February 10th or 24th, all work. And I think that means you've checked with the room that we had before for our retreat?
Did you get it? Are those things?
Okay. 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 Well, I don't want to put people on the spot who may not have their calendars right here. Maybe we could pick it next time. But those are the dates we're looking at, mostly well, they're all in February. And we're not looking at piggybacking on a regular board meeting. We're looking at setting it as a separate retreat the way we did last time.
Did you email us those dates?
Yeah,
please?
can do. So that was something I wanted to mention that Anthony has requested. I think it's a really good idea. And then one other thing I had on my list that I'd like to hear from people about, and that is the kind of the scope of the job for president and vice president. I think that with Anthony, it's been a wonderful job, and I'm not saying I'm not making a comment at this point on what Marianne suggested. I'm willing to help and continue. What I'm talking about is that Anthony has made this very much a partnership effort, and that means that the job is bigger. It takes more time. I would estimate it's a half-time job on average. And that includes a number of things that not only working on the agenda items, planning with Anthony. I mean, these are all things that happen as a partnership, like planning the retreat. What kind of information will be useful to the board, and how can we digest it in a way that will be understandable and at the appropriate level and all of that. And then Anthony gets to do a ton of work to make that happen. The events that happen on campus, the events that we need to go to. And there's a place where I think perhaps we could raise the bar for expectations, which we have not had, for our vice president as well. That, we really need to go to as many events as we can, off campus, on campus, to talk to the community and talk to our college, or be present to celebrate whatever is being celebrated, and there are many things like that. So I think people who are interested in these positions need to recognize that there is a very significant time commitment involved at this point. And for us, I think it's a great thing. I mean, having this kind of partnership in thinking these issues through brings us as a board together, I think, with our college leadership and our college in general, and allows us to be a more effective part of the whole organization. So I would appreciate people reacting to any of these issues, because I'd like to know your thoughts. Jonathan?
So I think a public engagement committee, or however we structure it, would be an amazing thing for the board. I actually ran on that idea, so of course I support it. But I think that's really needed, and I think I think we all know what we want to do too, and we all know that there's a need for us to do more public engagement. But to have a group that coordinates it and lets us know that here are the events coming up in the community this week, or this meeting is good to go to, is just a more focused and smart way of doing it. And right now, like the forum, we talk about it a lot, but no one plans it, or no one even messages a trustee saying, have you done your forum yet, or are you thinking about it? So that would be, I think, I highly support that too. I also want to support the expansion, or not expansion, I guess, but giving the officers of the board more responsibility. I think that's just important for the board to function, for the officers to have like clear delineated job duties that they need to do, instead of just, you're president, you're vice president, like, make it happen. Because even if you look at the board policy, it doesn't really say anything. So if let's say all of us were not on the board anymore, and new people came on the board and they had a president and vice president, there wouldn't be anything, like, there wouldn't be a clear thing of what you would do. So putting it in writing too, I think would be very helpful.
So a project could be, and we can't do it by next week, but we could plan to write a better description, better job description.
I do want to say that I am also interested in being vice president, so I want to disclose that while I also say that, but I don't want to but yeah.
Marianne?
The foundation does this. That is that Jeff and his troops put together a list for the board members of the events in the community that should be represented by somebody from the foundation board. And then we pass them out and see who can go to this one or who can go to that one. And it has turned out to be a very effective thing to do. So it clearly can be done. And that doesn't mean on the foundation's part that Jeff doesn't also go to those things. So we're not letting Anthony off the hook.
I didn't think you were.
No, I know you didn't. It's just that it means that there is trustee attendance. And if all that happens is they introduce you as they're representing the community foundation, it's something for the foundation then, and it would be something for the trustees.
It's good. Craig?
I really like very much the idea of what Marianne just said about, because we haven't really done that before. Like if we take some kind of consensus on the events, like on a monthly basis, who can do this, who can do that, because sometimes I have been famous for not doing a whole lot of events. But most of the time when I go to them, I find 2 or 3 other trustees there. And then I'm sure there are times when maybe the president shows up alone. I think that if we could make sure that we properly represent the Board of Trustees at the events, that it would be a beneficial thing. I'm also looking forward to our communications plans being, put together, and it's still not there yet totally and executed, but I think that that might also change how we address, when that process gets further along, that might change how we address what's going on. But I really do like the idea of saying these are events that, we should be at. And then, let's represent. If the whole board wants to go, that's fine. I have no objection, but let's not underrepresent at events either. And then, the workload that another point, the workload that I see that you've assumed, it seems to me that, the president doesn't have to be at every single one of those meetings. You got a lot on your plate, and we as trustees should be able to take some of that away. And that probably hasn't been happening in a way it should either. It's just a matter of organization. The 5 functions of management are. And now with the new president and the way we were handling things with experienced presidents, like when Dr. Hasland was president, and knowing the institution really well, I don't think that many people had to really think about it. When Marty was president, she just is used to being in charge and handling and showing up everywhere. And she did that, a marvelous job. And then you jumped in here, and now, Marianne had a lot of experience, and I know it's real time consuming, and I've been shying away from that president's role. I figure I have a vote, and I do due diligence, and I'm interested, and I try to make myself knowledgeable. It's a lot of extra work, and I think it needs to be distributed a little bit better so the load isn't all on the president or all on anybody. And that hasn't been happening, the delegation, or just getting more, Hey, I hurt myself, you were on vacation, Marty was on vacation for a few minutes. We struggled through, we did okay. We muddled along, but I think we could do better.
Yeah, you really didn't have to hurt yourself, Craig.
I know, I wish it hadn't happened, but it did. So, as a result, I only missed one meeting, but I also missed a lot of time doing backup work and following what's going on, and for that I apologize. We all can't control everything that happens to us, but we can identify those things that we can control and do something about, and I think we could delegate some of the responsibilities a little more effectively and efficiently, and not put one person in the hot seat and then not back them up. I
Yeah.
think that needs to happen.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I also was hoping that a committee of this sort would affirmatively develop ideas for events that, or whatever, I'm trying to generalize, but things that may bring the community to the campus, things that may bring us out to the community that don't already exist. You know, there's the list of things that already happen that we should be going to, and we've been talking about that, and I think everyone's correct. We need to do that better. But there's also the, what can we think of? I mean, this campus isn't that busy on a weekend. Are there more things on the weekends that could be done? Or, you know, what would the community be interested in hearing about from us? So.
Excellent.
When we, I think it was in 2010, we created what we called then a Community Relations Committee. It didn't work for a variety of reasons that no longer exist, but that may be what you're talking about. This just gives a name to it. Whether a full committee is necessary or whether we want that committee to go into session only when they collectively feel it's really necessary, that would really be productive. I think that would be the criteria for calling it into session. The workload of the president varies from year to year, depending upon the situation. And I think this year has been one where, that has to be true. When we move to the position of choosing a new superintendent president, the workload is going to increase. And it smooths out over time. But I think it's also true, and I think maybe useful, to remember what Kay Alexander said. You know, there are 7 of us here. The workload can be distributed. We each have to, I've forgotten what term she used, but essentially pull our weight. And that takes leadership from the president to say, you know, here's a discrete level of activity that I think you could do. Would you be willing to do it? And you don't have to do the whole thing. In fact, it's not a good idea for you to do the whole thing because you will wear out. This job, I can tell you, can take full time without much effort. But it doesn't. It doesn't need to, and it shouldn't, because there are 7 of us representing 7 different constituencies, and that's our primary purpose here. That's what we have to do.
Great comment, Peter. Marianne.
Back to the committee structure. I liked the committees when we had committees. But one of the things that I've discovered about the way we're doing it now that I really like, and that is we do not create a committee unless we expect a product. And the product may be a report or an attendance. It's a product. And I think that was where we were not so good in the past. So I'm hoping that we will continue with ad hoc committees with expected products. It seems to be the most productive way to operate us.
Yeah, and let me add to that, because I think you're onto something, because I think the ad hoc committees need to have a very specific purpose and a specific time come back and check in and all that sort of thing. So all 7 of us are knowledgeable in what's going on. But I do think the outreach to the community is really important. Unfortunately, every time we try, I haven't figured out how to do that, and that's kind of funny, because I should be should have 100 ideas, but we try and then it doesn't work, and, you know, like that community relations thing wasn't quite the time. And yet, it's so needed, so maybe we need an ad hoc committee to meet a few times to try to figure out, you know, how to get something, how to, yeah,
I think that's a
and
good
that would,
idea.
you know, and then bring back some ideas. I also wanted to, just while I've got this microphone hot, I want to say that the February retreat, I think, is a great idea, and we should be able to pick a date for a budget. I don't want to put it off, so that's really a good idea. And you're right about not, you know, we can't let the, what was it called, the FC MAT? What is that? FICMAT. We shouldn't let that just sit there on the shelf, so that's a good thing to do. But I'm okay with ad hoc committees, as long as they're specific and tell us what to do and come back to report. My only hesitation is just a specific thing in that when you look at our website and you look at our committees, it looks like we have it looks like we have all those committees. And I don't know when we decide we don't even want them there anymore. I mean, we would want to archive, of course, the minutes and that sort of thing, but I think at some point, it's not right to make people think we're doing all those committees. So maybe we need in there instead to put in our, you know, the ad hoc committees, list them and then put a little box for Jonathan and his legislative, you know, liaison committee, but all those things. And I know it's hard to keep up a website, but I want it to be a real truthful website, so at some point, we've got to redo that.
Good point.
Yeah.
Craig?
I've been very interested in our communications with the community and been really advocating for some change, and we've got half the way there. And I'm not sure about the ad hoc committee idea, but it's as close as I can get to something that I think will really work. I feel like having standing committees that don't meet unless they're called upon to meet in specific areas. If, for instance, like I spent 4 years on a couple of committees, and one of them I'm glad we're not doing anymore because it was kind of a waste of my time, and I felt very involved as a trustee because I had all these committee meetings to do, like 2 of them, and you know, and then I thought, you know, what am I really doing here in these committee meetings? And do the other board members really know what we're doing in the, you know, like in the fiscal committee? Do they really know what's going on? And, you know, and then we don't even all agree, but we came to consensus and we reported to the board and we got it done. When I chaired the fiscal committee, I kind of stopped some of that stuff because it wasn't really, it was just a meeting for the sake of having a meeting because of tradition. Well, this is the way we've always done it, but it really, I didn't feel was a productive use of time. And I'm not here because I need a full-time job or even a half-time job. If I'm going to do something, and I feel like the rest of you, if I'm going to do something, I want to make it count. See, in response to what Jonathan said earlier, I'd be interested in doing this. I'm really interested in if we're going to do an ad hoc committee or thing on community relations, I want to be a part in that. I'm willing to put time into that. And I'd be willing to do a lot more meetings and events if I know more about what they're actually about and have some background. Just because someone's a guest speaker's coming on campus or just because we're doing this because it's always been done or whatever, I'm sorry, you know, I need to know more about why, what makes the event good. I have a life outside of this, and I don't need it to be a full-time job. But I'm very, very interested, and if I wasn't dedicated to it, I wouldn't be here for a second term.
Good.
So I'm interested in that communications thing, and I almost think we should have a standing committee for that, and the work should start pretty soon.
Well, assuming we have consensus, I'm looking at least agendizing for next time. Emily, you have a comment.
Hi, so in relation to the community, the partnership issue, the ad hoc, is this going to be, I won't be here next week, so I'm just kind of trying to get some rough idea. Is it going to be similar to, what's the intentions? Are they similar to the last ad hoc that was created? Or will we be taking a different route of what the purpose and the mission is of this ad hoc.
Well, it's the flip side in purpose of, I mean, you're looking at the existing ad hoc we have is for mitigation of impacts. This is kind of to to encourage the positive side of what is it that we can do to serve our community better and relate to our community better, and perhaps have events that our community is more interested in, that they could come and learn more about the college, those kinds of issues. But one of the things that I heard, I think Marty was the one who was articulating it, is particularly the idea that maybe we put together this committee first, and it goes off and says, what are we going to do? And identifies what it's going to do as that first step, and then comes back and we talk about that and say, yeah, go do it, or how about adding this?
So keeping in line with the community relations, could we have some sort of student involvement with this committee? Because along the lines of community issues, there has been a staggering amount of student concerns, not so much in relation with the community, just more some serious student concerns have been coming forward, and I think that maybe having this being a community-focused ad hoc is fantastic, but also having it being a student-focused ad hoc, or maybe a completely different ad hoc, but I think that that is absolutely necessary at this time.
I couldn't agree more that it's absolutely necessary, because that kind of input is what can focus our attention.
Yeah, the only distinction is that if you're setting up an ad hoc committee, then it's board members are board members. However, you can have people visit and consult either consistently or for a particular purpose, invite people in you want to talk to, or have somebody who is a resource, such as students, particular students, be a resource on a continuing basis to a committee.
I guess I'm more saying that we instill into the mission or the purpose of this ad hoc. I understand board members would be serving. I'm not asking for the general public to be serving on the ad hoc, but for the purpose or, again, the mission of this ad hoc to be stated. It is community relations, but I think to focus a bit more on student concerns as well would help ease some of the growing concerns that I've been hearing.
Okay. Jonathan?
Emily, can you help me wrap my brain around that? So, because when I think students are the community. Like like Pat, she's the community, and so even though she works here, she probably has a neighbor that, I don't know. So yeah, maybe elaborate.
Of course that, the community the students are involved in that as well. I think though when we're putting across a statement, as we're focusing on community relations and attending events and whatnot, students may feel a bit excluded from a statement just involving the broad term of community, and maybe taking away the broad terminology and focusing in and honing in on a little bit more of a demographic that is feeling a tad unheard, may be the direction on which we would want to go.
So then maybe that's maybe a misconception on the thinking, because I think that everything that the board engages in is to fulfill the mission, and the mission is to ensure the educational success of the students. So I think that maybe while there's concerns with all different bodies within our campus community, I think what you're saying is valid, but I don't think that I think the committee will actually enhance or help bring light to some of the concerns that the students might have, but that's not necessarily the venue or the platform to say we just need, like that we're zoning in on student concerns, not because we don't think they're important or we're doing it, but that the community is to help fulfill the mission was actually supposed to address anything that the students might need in the broadest scope, in addition to then our foundation. But I think this part goes back to more of that relationship, trust, human things within that the foundation is helping us as working in tandem with the college. And then all those things can then further support what may come up that the students need, because things may come up that we may not have the capacity or the scope unless we reach out to all our partners and stakeholders. Does that make sense?
Right. I just think that along the lines of just including community partnership issues ad hoc, that's the terminology, to somewhere along the lines of just addressing community and student related issues is just, again, it's just something that has been brought to whenever we have been talking about the ad hoc that was previously created. Those were just the issues of concern that came to me from the student body, was that they felt it was more focused on the general outside community and not the community within this institution.
Do you think the students see themselves as a community of that community?
Could I make a suggestion that may sort of truncate this discussion? And it goes back to Marty's point. Maybe what we ought to have is a 3-member ad hoc group that will meet between now and our next meeting and ferret out just what is it that we want this committee to consider doing, and put something concrete in front of us so that we have something to discuss.
And maybe bring Emily along?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I brought it up now.
Yeah.
Is I'm leaving for Amsterdam on Monday, so I just wanted to get
To make sure you're in there.
a rough idea. Right.
We've got several people who want to talk. Obviously, it's a good subject. Marianne, I think you're next.
It occurs to me that while we're working on deciding how to do this, one thing we might think about more immediately, we meet with the representatives and usually the board members from the school district. We meet with lots of groups that relate to the work we do. I wonder if it wouldn't make sense to invite the student council to meet with the trustees sometime in the relatively near future. And that would be a setting where we could hear some of those concerns or any other concerns or ideas that they feel they are hearing. That's all.
Greg?
Everybody's input has been wonderful. Everybody's interested. The only concern I have through this conversation is that we all try to really remember that this board needs to function at a policy level and not try to do Anthony's job. And, Anthony's in the process still of setting up the communications. In fact, a vacant position exists. And I think a lot of these issues could be made clear to us, like, giving us some better direction of where to go if we just give it a little bit more time to develop. That's all I really wanted to add is that. I think maybe, and I like what you said, Peter, about coming back in a week. Maybe that's too soon or not enough time.
Don't know.
But,
Actually,
yeah, I don't either, but I suspect that it might be too quick.
yeah, my suggestion would be that we put on the agenda, which will go out tomorrow
Yeah.
for next week.
No, it's tomorrow.
Yeah,
Tomorrow.
it's tomorrow. That we put on the agenda that we will decide whether to have an ad hoc committee and who wants to be on it as part of this organizational meeting. And then that group with whoever they wish to consult with, which certainly could include a student person who is a representative, focus in on what Marty said, which is what do we want to cover? And maybe you'll discover you've got 2 committees there. I don't know. It's not clear enough to me what exactly the issues might surface and be. So that allows that group to focus right after we cause them to exist.
Right. And The ultimate committee may not be the committee that comes together and thinks through some options that we would want to consider as part of the charge to that committee. Who knows?
Yeah. Anthony? You've got-
Yeah, I just wanted to change topics just a second and put an idea out for your consideration. Just as Jonathan brings up the idea of a legislative liaison for the state and for federal policy and legislation, the college is really wanting to move, and we've been making some progress in meeting with the Unified School District and how we can align curriculum, how our faculty can talk with the teachers. We have Carrie Matsuoka here now, who we have a good relationship with, who wants to reach out. I think it would be worthy of us thinking, or you all thinking, of maybe a K-12 liaison of some kind that we could build relationships with the Unified School District and be able to promote things like the Promise and some other things. So just an idea for your consideration.
That's a good thought.
Jonathan?
So I have one more. And just to piggyback off, the theme of being out there in the community more, last week I went to the brown bag lunch for undocumented students, and I didn't really say much. I just was there to listen, and they were just very appreciative to have a trustee there, like just to have someone there and present. So I think the concept is very sound, and people do appreciate just the body of the trustee being there to show their support. And to that end, too, I think we need to, I'm interested in putting together like a policy work group to look into what policies we can change to support our undocumented students, which we have a fair number of. So either forming that now or forming that at next week's meeting. I know that the student chair of the undocumented student organization is interested in being on the committee to help, figure out what, their community really needs. So yeah, that is something I'm also committed to working on. I'm wanting to write a resolution, and it's almost done, of like just general support for the students, but I think, I think that would be very impactful, but also like specific policies at the board level would be necessary to, or to look into. So.
Okay, so that would obviously be a different topic in your mind, and so something to put on the agenda for discussion next week? Is that what you're suggesting?
The work group to explore policy? Yeah.
Okay. Is everyone comfortable with that one? I just don't want to put things on the agenda, then everyone says, no, don't want to do that. Okay.
That one seems a little bit more complicated.
Yes.
It is complicated.
I would almost be more comfortable with maybe, you as a single trustee can talk with Dr. Beebe and kind of see what, it's beyond, to me, and this is something that I was, when I worked at the college, I worked with, actually I helped start the club, the AB 540. It's a lot more complicated. And I look at it from different angles, from being a military family. I look at it from being a member of this community. I look at it from being a first-generation college student, from having migrant parents. So I look at it from different angles, and it's really complicated. And I don't know, I personally, at this point, don't even have, all this thought. So I don't know. I don't even know if three people spent 6 months on it, that would be enough time for me to support. I know we were with San Jose Evergreen College at the last conference, and Maida Castro at the time, they put together a very nice resolution, and you were there. Mm-hmm. And at the time, that wasn't even something that the board felt they wanted to even bring, different reasons. And so I don't know, I would just, maybe if you guys I would yield to Dr. Beebe, because I think this is very complicated on so many levels.
I agree.
Let me make a suggestion. Veronica, you sound like you've got some good background in this. Would you and Jonathan be willing to meet with Dr. Beebe and then maybe come back to us with your collective thoughts?
Yeah.
Sure.
Would that work?
My only thing and is that if we were to look into this, I would want the people affected by it to be involved in helping look into it, because I don't want to like exclude the people we're helping. Yeah,
No,
I
that-
don't want, yeah.
I get
Yeah.
that. That makes sense. But I'm thinking first step is what you
Right.
just suggested, and the first step is meet with our president and talk about it.
Yeah, I just wouldn't want it to be like some front page of the news press saying Santa Barbara City College is,
No.
we're not, I want to be very strategic about yielding to the complexity of this.
This is a hot topic. It's all over the internet. Especially the past few days, I spent the last 3 evenings, reading everything I could find on the subject. And it is complicated. And there's not much we can add to all the points because a lot of different places are speaking out about it. And I think we should watch very carefully and consider what we do before we, proceed. Except, we can be positive about we're serious, we're looking at it and we're watching it. But some of the issue we don't have control over. And we can advocate for certain positions, but some of it's not our decision to make. And so deciding exactly what we could or could not do is the key, rather than just exploring the issue. There are limitations that we have to work within. So then I think we have to defer to staff, to our management, to give us some guidance.
And just as a quick comment, we're certainly monitoring this very, very closely. We're in discussions at the state level to determine the direction that the Chancellor's office is taking and they're desiring us to take and such. Of course, watching this from a federal policy perspective as well. But your point is well taken in terms of it is a very complex topic and multidimensional.
So are we okay with you, Veronica, and Jonathan meeting with Anthony, and we'll go from there? You'll let us know what, if anything, comes out of that? Okay. Okay, so that, I think, is a good dialogue. And on board organization and structure, let's go to the support of the Promise program. And my thought here was just to pause. We've thanked the foundation and Jeff, and these used to be together, but now we're talking about if we have ideas right now among us of more that we could do. I just wanted to give us a moment to think about that, and I think it probably is within the scope of the ad hoc that we just talked about, but that's for them to decide. But it's also something we can throw out right now. So anybody have some particular thoughts?
With respect to the Promise,
Yeah.
And Jeff's heard me, I think, before, but I think as you go forward, I'd be interested in continue to support you guys, especially looking at the demographic of your students. And I know you guys are definitely taking a social, cultural approach to this, but recognizing that our students are an extension of their families and that many of them are the other income in their home, that I think that it's going to be important for our families to also be part of this process to support their students, and I'd be happy to help support you guys in that. I know I personally didn't do upper bound, but being 7 siblings that we are, the first 2 being first ones going through the process did upper bound, and so I know that that was a real game changer for the families to have the parents there and really understanding what this meant. I know personally for me, being in homes of friends that I met here in Santa Barbara on the west side and having dinner with families and saying, no, she needs to take this class. And so to have someone else just talk to these families, that's important for them because sometimes mom and dad will say, take in next semester, rent's due, like 5 kids need to eat, we gotta go, and your $200 a week are gonna make a difference. But in the long run, just again, helping families with the financial literacy, the investment, all of that on a social cultural perspective, recognizing that it's important and how do we honor their culture and practice, but still say we also have to put value on this But you know that, and I'm just saying, sign me up, because I'd be happy to help you guys with that.
Greg?
You know, there's a number of nonprofits in the community that do work with, and a lot of them, one of them is School of Squash. It's pretty, I'm sure that Jeff Green has maybe a list of all the nonprofits in town that do this kind of thing. And I would like to take this opportunity to tell him that if you think that the presence of a board member or two from this board to go and address those groups, I, for one, would jump at the chance. And I've done this kind of work a little bit in the past with other groups like Sister Cities, and we found some interesting relationships with an African charity that I'm on the board of, and meeting more people, and found a lot of interesting relationships. But it's a matter of that communications plan too, and that we all work together in some kind of coordinated way. And but Jeff, if you need help, you need to ask, please.
And since we have Jeff as a resource, Jeff, did you have any thoughts you wanted to give us about this topic?
How we could help?
Okay, I'll get my pen ready. We're going to take notes here.
But I appreciate those two offers. I think this ties very much back into your last conversation about community presence, representation, appearing alongside other groups and supporters. I think building the link at all levels, from at a student level directly, at a staff and faculty level, with families, but also with formal organizations. And I think in some cases with formal organizations, you as sitting trustees are some of the strongest representatives of that as elected, publicly elected members. So to the extent you're willing, and maybe I'll wait to hear what comes out of the ad hoc committee of how you want to engage with community organizations, but that's certainly one strong way. Early on, we jumped right in with high school, so we have very good working relationships with high school principals, with the districts, with the frontline counselors, a handful of the teachers. But ultimately, over time, we want that to go more upstream, so that we're talking to families at a very early age. We're talking to elementary school students, where we're doing it as a really more holistic, as some of what Veronica just mentioned. So I think there will be a lot of opportunity. And I would look to you to also put some boundaries on where you really have an interest and feel like you can add something, and I can certainly reach out on behalf of the foundation, and we can link all of that together. So that's more the informational side. The fundraising side, I don't know how many of you, I know some of you expressed privately to me an interest in helping with that. That's obviously a big piece of it. And so I think there's a window we have here. I don't want to predict, but these next 12 to 18 months are key in getting the momentum built that we can turn into the support we need to make sure this is sustainable in perpetuity.
So even though you have vastly more contacts and understanding of our community and the people to talk to, if we have ideas, there's somebody you could talk to fundraise with.
Very, very open to ideas. Please don't ever be shy about that. And I will reach out if I happen to know that you might be well connected with someone that hearing it from you would be more important than hearing it from me or my board member. I think being strategic about having multiple messengers all on the same message is critical. So very much open to that.
Okay. And then, of course, we can write you a check.
And I will never say no to that. Correct.
Marcia, I'd like to add something on that part. I don't, obviously, I have no idea who among you does and has not yet written your check. But I want to be sure you know that when you are raising money for a program like the Choice Program, one of the first things the foundation or whatever your source of money looks at is whether the Board of Trustees all donate to the cause. Mm-hmm. That's all I'm going to say.
There's a rumor that that the foundation would look with joy on the members of this board becoming members of the Visionaries Association.
I've heard the same rumor.
Is that rumor anywhere close to true?
I can neither confirm nor deny. Yes, of course. Absolutely,
A true
Dr.
diplomat.
Hasland, yes.
Okay.
And I don't think it's the amount. The foundations don't look at how much is given. They look at whether everybody has participated.
Yes, I think there's, needs to be a recognition that not everyone's in the same position
Absolutely.
here, so.
I had a couple of comments along the lines of community engagement that strike me as useful here. In some communities, there's a strong corporate engagement, particularly in the area of defining what the jobs are going to look like out there in the future somewhere. And their level of engagement is often financial as well as instructional. And I think we may want to look at some model like that. I know they do it in Minnesota and other places. So I'd like this committee, perhaps, of a community relations committee, to look at that. I think one area where we have benefited in the past has been with a kind of mentorship by retired members of the community who can tutor in a particular area. I know that there may be some problems with sort of opening that in a blanket way, but I think strategically it's possible to do that. And the third area has to do with job placement. I think one of the things I learned from this last CCLC meeting was that a number of our colleagues are concerned about the absence on campus of a place where a student can go and say, I want a job in this. Where can I go? And just examining whether or not we are doing that. And if not, is it possible for us to think about a way of, once again, engaging the community and doing something like that?
I need to comment on that. We absolutely are doing that. And our Career Center is just doing a phenomenal job at looking at exactly what you're doing and helping students with that aspect. We just had a nice presentation on, I had a nice presentation on that provided to me to help educate me about what it is they're doing, and just very impressive. Maybe we can have that as a board presentation at some point.
Very good.
Okay. Well, thank you, folks. We have one more item before we adjourn to closed session, and that is, thank you, Jeff, the 9.1 legal policy on nepotism, 7310. Could I have a motion to update the policy?
I move approval, item 9.1.
I
Craig,
second.
Any comments, questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. All right, we're going to adjourn to closed session.
Emily, I was thinking of the joint sessions, and you know how a lot of neighbors have issues. So do you think the students think that people are doing one-sided stuff?
No, no.
It's always in a context in which
That's
they
a good
don't feel like
Interesting meeting.
counter perspective would be presented.
A lot of conversation.
Yeah, it's actually pretty interesting.
Tearing into stuff that
Yeah,
we seem to all agree with
Yeah.
most all of it. I
I
don't,
think everybody was trying to figure out how to engage ourselves.
I'm a little,
But it's not just us, it's also.
Where are they, here?
yeah, I don't.